welcome to this week's episode of ClueCon Weekly. Joining us this week is our friend and friend of the of ClueCon, and friend of the open source community and the telephony community, Jeff Pulver, of many hats and many names. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm very grateful to be here.
This is the first time I have you on the conference in a while. Could you please give us a quick introduction about yourself for the probably three people that don't know you?
For the last 28 years, I've been enamored with the idea of talking on the internet. For years before that, I was just enamored with the ability for people to communicate on radio. And in '94, I started looking at how to talk on the internet. I was into, video when we had 5 frames per second, black and white, 160 by 120 images. It was called Do You See Me? And then in
Wow.
February '95, I discovered iPhone from Vocal Tech, which was the first uh, application that truly worked, although it was half duplex. And I've been really talking on the internet ever since. And I very accidentally in '95, later that year, created the first phone network that ran on the internet called Free World Dial Up. It was free. It literally connected the world and it ran on dial up. And over the years, the concept of FWD evolved from that to an IP only communications network, which a fork of it became the framework for Vonage. And everything that FWD did in the later years was built on open source. I'm a big advocate of open source communications, creating for the common good. And I was very fortunate to use the platform of Free Will Dial-Up in a regulatory filing I did in 2003 with the FCC, where I asked for regulatory clarity proactively that voice communication that originates on broadband should not be regulated as telecom. And in February 2004, the FCC issued an order called, well, the Pulver order. I'm the Pulver order. And in the last, 19 and a half years, if you or any of your listeners have ever benefited from the ability to use, I don't know, you name the application, on broadband, have you paid for it? Most likely not. It's one thing to be a service provider, but it's another thing to be a consumer of FaceTime, iMessage, for that matter, WhatsApp. And yeah, you're welcome. Because the work that I did back then opened the door for so much broadband innovation. And the telecom industry today is about 2 trillion, and there's a lot of VoIP inside of that. And I did a bunch of things, both policy and innovation. I started a bunch of companies, and I really enjoy bringing people together. My fun is putting a bunch of strangers in a room and asking everybody what is their passion, and helping people connect the dots. Not so much even to do business to business development, but person to person, heart to heart, and help create the framework for relationships which will last perhaps a lifetime. Because the older we get, the harder it is to have meaningful conversations with people, let alone find new friends. And I really enjoy having the opportunity to help connect the world, however possible.
Well, yeah, there's a lot there. So recently, you've been working with AI, and well, considering what the future looks like, I've seen you speak at a few conferences. Well, always very interesting. And well, you're one of the few people that are knowledgeable enough. I can ask about regulatory policies for AI, which are cropping up more and more in discussions. So I think that's really good topic that we have for today. What do you think
Yeah,
about
the challenge with AI is it's being misunderstood and misrepresented. I mean, there are people who read books or have read science fiction. I think some of the science fiction writers have given a really interesting preview to what AI could do and may have scared many governments to take proactive actions in a reactionary way. And look, AI to me, anyone in third grade and knows how to write a line of code is writing AI. I mean, artificial intelligence, frankly, getting an answer from a third party to execute code could be looked at art as AI. But the AI we're talking about here is the LLM stuff, the generative AI boom of 2023, which really took many years to get here. And about 7 years ago, when chatbots started happening,
it?
I actually put together a group of people looking to prevent the fast government assassination of AI because it was being misunderstood even then. But these days, there's the idea of good and bad, light and dark. The
Yeah.
old, I don't know, take it from Star Wars, take it from any thematic theme in the last 500 years or the last 5,000 years. And people with good intentions generally do good. People with evil intentions will do evil. And if you look at the evolution of TCP/IP in the 1960s, when TCP/IP was first being created, it's an open source protocol. The reason why we started seeing hacks in the early 90s on TCP/IP is because it was very easy to understand where the where the breakages were because it was published. To this very day, we're still repairing TCP/IP in commercial settings because people could pierce through it. And so because it's the internet was based on trust, right? We trust first, then we have to protect. AI could be looked at as trust first. However, if people are looking to do bad things, they don't need just to use AI for bad things. They could do many other platforms. But where I'm coming from is I think that AI could add a quality to our life that we don't even know yet. That we can have beautiful things come from it, that our imaginations get stroked, that our creativity gets hit in a way that we are unbounded. We are born unbounded. It's like if you talk to a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, and you ask them about the future, you can hear a truth that sounds like it's from a philosopher from hundreds of years ago.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
because they have not yet been bounded in what they can't do, but because they're still living in the world of possibilities of what is possible. But you talk to someone who's 15 or 16 years old, they may sound more grounded because they know the box they're living in. But in reality, what's happened is that they've learned the word no, can't, not me. And so they take themselves out of that conversation. And what AI done properly can do is can help unbind our minds and open us up to a creative sense that nothing is impossible, that we're allowed to seek outside ourselves, outside our solar system, to the greater galaxies in the world, and understand that we anything is possible, that we can use AI for good, that we can use AI to look at an X-ray and help a well-crafted doctor find a condition that normally is an edge case, but the AI figured it out or says, I've scanned 1,000 other X-rays this past month, and you know what? This is a condition that's trending around the world. Let's look here. Or let's look at these results because maybe this is something we've never seen before, or we could accumulate all this information and we see trends. It's unfortunate in the days of the internet, the way that people used to track viral conditions is they would go on Google search and 10 days ahead of an outbreak, you'd look based on the search term. And that's how the CDC knew that something was happening, is because people were
Oh, right.
trending
Yeah.
on certain
There was
conditions
more
of
people
disease.
searching for I have a sore throat and my ears hurt. So I'll check for that.
Right. And so AI for good can help us in real time actually identify trends around the world as they're happening. And they could also help cultivate so that that we act in a good way. The AI that we're worried about right now has come into the world of from ChatGPT. AI wasn't born yesterday. AI has been around since before actually we had personal computers. The concept of AI has been around in writers for a long, long time, and it's how we manifest it. So the issue at hand is to make sure that regulations are not put in place to prevent the evolution of things that may be inevitable. The inevitability of it is such that it may have already happened, and even if we were to regulate it in America, it's not to say that in a rogue state or some other place it wouldn't happen anyway. And so you have to find a way to find balance so that we're able to both not be competitively disadvantaged, but also learn to protect ourselves. Because what is AI being used for right now? Well, generative AI voice is a big thing, um, but also are deep fakes, and the ability for people to be susceptible to being ransomed because of someone's voice. I've always said that voice will always be the killer app. I've said that repeatedly, that no matter where we go in the world, being able to say I love you to somebody, the metadata, the emotion attached to that is priceless. And there are times when people get caught up in this, where where when an older parent, grandparent is told that a grandchild was kidnapped, and now they're getting this AI deep fake,
For
where
money.
telling them about the condition. And so that's why a lot of families around the world have created family passwords, because they tell sometimes now the grandparents know enough to say to the kidnappers, tell us the family password. And that usually, if it's not real, if it's a fake, that kind of breaks there. But AI itself, offers us a chance to better see who we are. It can help with a lot of on the creativity side. From the music side, I'm a big fan of music. I have been for a long time, and I've been using ChatGPT to help inspire me to write lyrics. Occasionally, for fun at parties, I would take a tune that people are familiar with, and depending upon the situation, ask ChatGPT to create a song on these themes, not those themes, but fit it into the rhythm of the song and the notes, and it's pretty amazing. And so I use it to spur creativity to help us think outside our own boxes. And I think that we're at a moment in time where AI can be used to automate. It can be used to replace menial tasks. It can be used to also help us do things we could never do without it. And sure, if you're an educator, you may be afraid of ChatGPT helping kids with their term papers and with their research papers. However, you don't have to worry about plagiarism so much because if you look at ChatGPT, there are a lot of that's and whiches. Something my 10th grade English teacher made sure I got rid of in my English. That there are certain signs and tells inside of most ChatGPT generated content. It will get
You're right.
better. The references, though, if you can use ChatGPT in research and get citations, so that the temperature, the ability for it to hallucinate is way down, and it gives you citations that are real. Because a few months ago, I was on ChatGPT, I was asking ChatGPT about me, and it gave references to books I never wrote, to things I've never done. I thought this is wonderful, but it's not me; it's someone else. It's confused, and and so, do we need to regulate? I think maybe we need to understand purpose and intention. We need to understand what people are doing, why are they doing it, how are they doing it, and maybe in a general framework, create an environment which incentivizes people to do good things, and puts for the same reason why you don't want to promote malware, yet you want to understand how hackers think, and there are conferences and places where you have the dark hats, the white hats. You do want to understand the framework for what's possible, but if you're going to do bad things, by all means those things should be illegal, and should be fought hard against. If people are doing things experimentally for because it hasn't been done before, but not necessarily with bad intentions, but really positive disruptive intentions, I'm okay with that. For me, three words: fear, greed, and disruption. Now, you may think those words are negative words when you hear them: fear, greed, disruption. But if you look at
Yeah.
innovation, right? I know that a marketplace is ripe for innovation when all of a sudden those three words are percolating at an incumbent's a board meeting. So when voice over IP became a thing during the late '90s, there were a lot of major telcos that were negative about VoIP. I remember a CTO of a major carrier saying to me on a panel at our company, we don't use toys, right? We use hardware. And then 2 years later at the Von conference, what I was hosting, I saw the same person writing a multi-million dollar deal with a hardware vendor to implement it on their network. So it's like, So, there's, when you have the people who are going to be feared are going to be the incumbents who may go to their lobbyists in a government to help prevent that innovation from happening, because the industry as they know it has been disrupted, has been changed. But not all disruption is bad. Upgrade our systems. We want to upgrade our thinking. We want to upgrade our technology so that we can be competitive and really welcome the next generation of where things can go. So I realize it's silly of me to think that everybody has good intentions because, of course, people have had bad intentions and bad things happen. And yes, we want to protect against the bad, but I don't want to take away the good. I would like to find a framework. If we have to regulate, I'd like to find a way to do it in such a way so that we can still be innovative. I mean, the Pulver water, which I was referring to earlier, came in an era that a lot of lobbyists were saying, if it quacks like a duck and looks like a duck, it's a duck. And what they're referring to is a regulatory treatment of the end-to-end voice over IP that never connects with a public switch telephone network. And I duck, it's something else. And I'm very grateful that in 2003, 2004, the U.S. regulatory folks from the FCC were listening. I cannot promise that every regulatory regime in every country would think like that today. But back then they were open to it. And, AI itself, interesting, right? But, if we have the technology to have cognitive sense that we can be precognitive and see the future, do we arrest people ahead of time because it's predicted that in 2027 a crime is going to be committed? At what point do we start, being proactively negative, right? Um, because there's, and people of course make references to things like Skynet, but that also says that people over a certain age, because some people never saw those Terminator movies. Some people don't even realize what Skynet represents, right? That the total destruction of the world as we know it. So, there is fear of what we don't know. There's also unbridled opportunities. Just yesterday, I had a conversation with two 23-year-old kids in a Y Combinator group in San Francisco who have a new voice AI company. They're not even quite sure what they're doing with it just yet, but they're so inspired to be creative that they're promoting. I saw them on Twitter or X, and they intrigue me. And so for me, I'm so interested in where things are going that I recently brought the Vaughn conference back to life. It's called Vaughn Evolution, and the next one is taking place in New York, November 1st and 2nd. It was at ClueCon. I decided, you know what, I should get a developer conference to what I'm doing too, to look at all the innovation, particularly since FreeSwitch is like a major open source communication platform, and the voice XML, the signal wire markup language, what the AI stuff that you guys were showing at the conference blew my mind. I thought that was one of the biggest innovations I've seen in a very, very long time. So inspired by that, I decided to create Von Builder. I found a trendy term for developers in certain genres. They sort of took it from the maker community, is a builder. So I'm having a Von Builder conference on October 31st. And I'm looking to bring together all the minds of people looking at AI, looking at VoIP, looking at blockchain, looking at 6G, and saying, what's happening next when we put all these technologies together? What can we do? Because I think we can invent things we haven't done yet before. And that's the nice thing about AI. It reminds us that we could be bigger than who we are, that collaborative ideas can change the world. And AI can be used in many different fields, from research to medicine, to health, to climate change. We can do AI for social good. We could do AI for ourselves. We can create personal assistants. We can also use AI to help us figure out who we are and what we want to do, and help us be better residents of this planet called Earth. There's so many things we can do. So to come in early and regulate AI without even understanding its full capabilities, it would be a mistake. Yes, you want to net out the bad actors. You want to take out people doing things that are just definitely going to be bad, but there's a lot of gray. And so my hope is that if there's a framework for regulation, it doesn't take away from the innovation.
So my first take here is that so I'm from Europe, and Europe has generally adopted a harsher stance on regulation in the world, especially when there was no previous regulation happening in other parts of the world, especially the U.S. So the first thing I hope is that the U.S. adopts a sensible regulation about AI before the EU gets its hands on it, because I'm from Italy, and we narrowly escaped having GPT banned from the country, like at
I saw
all.
that. That was scary, but that was fear mongering too, right? That was people pushing the negative, but thank goodness it got we got away from that. And I do think well, here's the thing: the United States Congress is predictably unpredictable, and that very few things get through. A lot of bills get a lot of attention because of the fear that it could happen. But to actually affect positive change, we need somebody who is not necessarily connected to anything else to come in and make it happen. And that's why I'm an advocate of being clueless. I think clueless is a strength. I was completely clueless about the regulatory process, about wanting to keep voice over IP unregulated. If anyone would have told me in that year that it was impossible to do what I was going to do, I probably wouldn't have done it. But that's when I realized that nothing is impossible, that one person can make a difference. And if there are such advocates on the AI side that are not tied to what happens if, but just is focused on making sure that something does happen in a good way, there's hope. And that's the other part about living, right? It's nice to wake up every day, to appreciate being present, to know that we have yet another day to make positive change, because we have hope, right? There's love, there's light, there's hope, and with hope anything can happen. And so AI, positive AI, brings out hope, and certainly hopefully will bring us to the better appreciation from where we're at, because you're right, when governments have quick reactions,
Yeah.
it takes a long time to unwind what they do. and that creates a negative reaction. Canada, for example, has had AI centers of excellence for years up in Toronto, and they're one of the AI capitals for years now, where innovation's happening, not just in voice, but it's one of those things that a generation from now will say, what was this? We need peace, love, and understanding. What's wrong with AI? Hopefully, that a generation from now will not be living under Skynet. Just saying.
Yeah, the again, the regulation in Italy happened because it was pure fear mongering, and moreover, it wasn't really about the technology. But this being Italy, we have this thing where if somebody starts screaming about jobs being lost to something, the first knee jerk reaction is to ban it. Or if something needs to be banned, they never ban it because then jobs are gone. So that's really what it was about. This came from journalists, really, not even, it wasn't a technical concern, which is the fun thing. The privacy thing was just kind of an excuse. Like they found a reason to try and block it for the moment. And the fact that GPT is trained on data that's supposedly not fully anonymized, etc. But it was not even the real reason. So, what do you think could be a reasonable regulation framework for AI going forward? Like, what would you propose if it was you deciding?
Well, it depends upon what. So for a reasonable framework for AI would also have to encompass multiple industries, not just one industry, because I think AI is a technology that transcends everything about our lives. So we want to sort of take the Hippocratic oath of do no harm. That if we could take a look at the Hippocratic oath what doctors take when a person becomes a doctor, that they're there to practice medicine, and number one is to do no harm. If we could take a do no harm approach to AI, I think that it would be accepted around the world, because that is so it goes back to purpose and intention. We don't necessarily want to confine medicine for fixing one disease or for fixing one condition, but it's the human condition. And then if you're a doctor practicing, you certainly don't want to put your patients at risk. It doesn't mean that people don't get hurt or otherwise don't have all the outcomes that they're expected, but we're prescribing medicine to help people with diseases. We're hoping to eliminate disease. I would like to think that AI can be used in a similar way, that we do no harm, that we use AI for positive good, and that we use it to help extend ourselves way beyond our current thinking. AI maybe is probably will most likely is what's going to be used to help find life outside this universe. AI is what's going to be used to help us find the peace, love, and understanding that we don't understand ourselves. It may give us a higher sense of being. AI, hopefully will not be the trigger of war, but perhaps we'll find paths to peace. It could maybe find that commonality that's not so obvious across cultures. It can be used for many good things to help us see beyond ourselves, see beyond our nose, as they say. But we have to give it a chance to flourish, to grow, and not be constrained. So if we take a do no harm approach, which by definition means AI will not be used for bad, I think we're okay with that. And we want to leave it general enough so that in every field, every discipline which could benefit from AI, they can. And at the same time, everyone agrees we're not going to use AI for bad things. And maybe we have to check in what bad things mean from generation to generation. But generally speaking, if we do AI for good, and we take a Hippocratic oath approach to it, I think across the board, at least across 100 plus countries, we should be able to find consensus one of these years.
Yeah, how it feels like to me is that the regulation about AI will end up being very similar to regulation, well, not as stringent, but regulation about guns and weapons. That is, it's something that you won't be punishing the act of owning one because that's perfectly legal in many places, but the usage. So if you use AI to scam someone, it will be seen as a worsening, like an aggravating
Sure,
condition.
no, but again, that's a bad thing. So that'd be a social bad. So X out. That's not a good use case. So yes, it's harmful.
But
So
it's hard to make sure AI can't be used for those uses because, frankly, as soon as you have access to one of those new voice generation APIs, there's three or four that are very good, incredibly impressive that can just recreate voice from someone for a single sentence. I mean, you can do whatever you want. It's not easy
Right.
to.
That's why I suggest it's purpose and intention. It's like individual people need to, I believe people better, can be better citizens if they understand their purpose and intention on this earth, if they understand their dharma. And if you take a look at it from the use of AI, something similar, that we want to better understand what we're doing, how we're using it, and what the intentions are. But if we intend to do good things, I'm in favor. If people are looking to do bad things, I would pass. I would say be careful.
Yeah, it is. And I also think the main concern right now is probably not text and content generation. That's very hard to use for bad, but it's more like the voice and fake capabilities. Really, those are the only concern. Like, how will you use GPT? I mean, GPT 4, whatever, any LLM for bad. It's. I mean, you can literally just write the thing. It would just take you longer, but
Right? No, I'm worried about ChatGPT 10, not ChatGPT 4. And
when
it
it runs for president, that's the problem. That starts being a problem.
That'd be a different challenge, yeah. So look, we have time to figure that out, but with open minds, we could find consensus. And I think that we're at a time where we need to be aware of AI, not run away from it, understand that we can get along, that we can coexist, and that there's an opportunity right now to better understand, cut out the hype, and see what we can do. Agree that bad is bad, and we should protect ourselves from the bad, and look to embrace the good and provide a structure, so a framework, so that people with bad intentions are, sought after in the way that they're incarcerated, and people that are looking to do things for good are given an opportunity to show what that is. And hopefully that's a framework that could work out at the UN or someplace where we can find a way to take a technology that changes our lives and embrace it, at least watch it, because it's still nascent. Even though it's been around for a while, we're hitting we're hitting a curve, an inflection point, but we're not there yet. And so, if we could just come out with a way to serve the public good, do no harm, and protect those who would otherwise be susceptible to the harm, we may have a starting place to work from, and hopefully, we'll be able to maintain the opportunity to grow this technology and not stop it.
So here's one last question to wrap it up. How do we influence politics? Because frankly, I'm from Europe. Europe has a long history of being a bad place for politicians not understanding technology. How do we make sure people hear us?
The easiest way for being heard is literally to stand up and give yourself a platform to be heard. Over the years, I was fortunate to have the Vaughn conferences as a platform. I invited regulators to the events to help bypass lobbyists who were going to certain governments and telling people the way they saw it, because they had incumbents they were looking to protect. And I have found that by having direct dialogue with those people who might regulate us, and standing up and having what we call brown bag lunches, going to their offices, sitting down and having meaningful conversations, listening is very important. Being able to hear their concerns, not speak to the points that you want to, but hear what's being said and spoken to and address those points. A great politician at a press conference doesn't answer the questions being asked, they answer the questions they wish they were asked. So they're always doing deflection. If we can engage in real dialogue and speak to the people's fears, understand and find consensus of where we all jointly are worried about, and then understand that worrying is a waste of time, that there are things we either can act on or can't act on, and focus on that, we will then find a way to, in fact, bring about positive change. But it takes individuals, it takes people who are willing to stand up and take positive action, that will then bring us forward into a moment in time where something good happened, or at least something happened, as opposed to being passive and just watching that go by. So to answer your question, Luca, it takes a person, takes multiple people standing up and being present to share their opinion, and that will help invoke positive change.
Well, that's a good starting point. Yeah, we're all working on at view levels, and I think it's time for the industry at large to get together and start thinking about regulation before it gets to us. Again, I might have a different angle because I've seen that happen in Europe, and I know what happens when people don't move early enough. There's entire industries that got started 5 years after, just because someone decided it was not they were not supposed to get going. It's been quite interesting. Well, thank you, Jeff, for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to see you. And well, looking. So, when are your next conferences, so that people know?
My next conference is fall 23 Vine Evolution. It's October 31st to November 2nd in New York City. More information about that can be found at pulver.com. And I'm looking forward to embracing the future and looking at the intersection where telecom and AI and 6G and so many other things are happening to see what's next and how to best prepare for those opportunities.
Fantastic. Well, Jeff, thank you again for joining us today. And Jeff Pulver, pulver.com, man of many hats. And we spoke about AI and regulation. It was a great chat. Thank you very much. Oh, that's a real hat too.
Thank you.
And for the rest of the people, I'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Yes.